The Galactic Confederation had existed for roughly 12,000 years, a fact its non-human members never tired of mentioning whenever humans entered a room. Like the new neighbor who shows up to the community barbecue wearing socks with sandals, humanity had stumbled onto the galactic stage just 27 years ago, when our first faster-than-light probe accidentally crashed into a Xyrillian diplomatic vessel. They've barely figured out how to leave their solar system without breaking something, was the popular sentiment echoed in the grand chambers of the Confederation Council. Yet here we were, somehow securing ourselves a seat at the grown-ups' table through what the Dorsani ambassador called a fascinating combination of dumb luck and terrifying resourcefulness. The Joint Military Academy on Proxima Station represented the Confederation's begrudging acknowledgement that these peculiar bipeds from Earth might eventually be useful. Established as a gesture of goodwill, translation, a way to keep tabs on the unpredictable newcomers, the Academy trained cadets from all 37 member species in the art of defending the galaxy from threats both external and internal. What the Academy really taught, however, was hierarchy. The Vargosians, with their 6 millennia military tradition, naturally assumed command positions. The telepathic Myconids handled intelligence, the silicon-based Petrovirians managed engineering, and humans? Well, humans were good at being enthusiastic. They're like puppies, General Vraxteer of the Dorsani Imperium once remarked during a faculty meeting. Eager, messy, and completely unaware of their limitations. His 7-foot frame and iridescent exoskeleton commanded respect among peers, while his 16 combat medallions ensured unwavering obedience from subordinates. The power structure was clear. Ancient species at the top, younger civilizations in the middle, and humans firmly at the bottom, a convenient footstool for the galactic elite. Everyone understood this arrangement, everyone except the humans, who had this irritating habit of not knowing their place. Cadet First Class Quinn Nakamura had never planned on becoming the unwitting representative of humanity's potential. Growing up in the post-contact slums of New Osaka, Quinn had joined the Confederation forces for the same reason most humans did: the promise of seeing something besides the inside of Earth's increasingly overcrowded megacities. That, and the meal plan, another scintillating lecture on Dorsani battle formations, Quinn muttered to himself, scrolling through his holopad as he navigated Proxima Station's curved corridors. Because, apparently, the key to galactic peace is arranging ourselves in a perfect hexagon. What Quinn lacked in reverence for tradition, he made up for with a physicist's understanding of force application and a street fighter's instinct for survival. His educational assessment had labeled him troublingly innovative, high praise on Earth, but practically an insult within the rigid Confederation hierarchy. 3 years at the Academy had taught him to keep his more creative solutions to himself, at least until the practical exams. Unlike his classmates, who had been genetically groomed for military service since conception, Quinn had clawed his way into the Academy through a combination of raw aptitude scores and what his entrance interviewer had described as concerning levels of stubborn determination. He was shorter than average, faster than expected, and had developed the peculiar human ability to appear completely uninteresting until the exact moment it became advantageous not to be. General Vraxteer, meanwhile, had developed a special interest in the human contingent, the way a collector might take interest in particularly unpredictable laboratory specimens. The General's 16 combat medallions weren't merely decorative. Each represented a campaign where his tactical brilliance had crushed an enemy of the Confederation. His exoskeleton, naturally blue-black and intimidatingly reflective, was augmented with ceremonial etchings detailing his lineage back 30 generations. The humans continue to disappoint, High Commander, Vraxteer reported during his weekly communication with Dorsani High Command. They lack the physical prowess of the Vargosians, the mental discipline of the Myconids, or the technological intuition of the Petrovarians. They are average in all respects. What truly bothered the general, though he would never admit it, was how the humans simply wouldn't accept their mediocrity. Especially that Nakamura, who had the audacity to question a 16-medal general's tactical assessment during last week's simulation. The tensions at the Academy weren't always obvious to the untrained eye. They manifested in subtle ways. The Vargosians accidentally shoving humans in the dining hall, instructors calling on non-human cadets first despite raised hands, training partners suddenly unavailable when humans needed to practice. "Just another day in interstellar harmony," Quinn remarked to his roommate, a myconid named Telpax, whose spores had the unfortunate habit of turning bright orange whenever Quinn told jokes. "Did you know General Vraxteer assigned me to clean the quantum torpedo tubes with a toothbrush after I pointed out the flaw in his Rigelian pincer maneuver?" "Perhaps," Tampox responded, spores shifting to a worried purple, "you should consider the strategic value of occasionally appearing less human." Quinn grinned. Now, where would the fun be in that? The Academy's infamous tactical response simulation was meant to separate the future commanders from the future cannon fodder. Holographic enemies, real weapons set to stun, and actual consequences for failure. It was the Confederation's idea of educational entertainment. "Today's scenario," General Vraxteer announced to the assembled cadets, his exoskeleton glinting menacingly under the training deck's lights, "will test your ability to defend a civilian outpost against a Krivlax insurgency." His compound eyes settled on the human section with what passed for a Dorsani smirk. "Even the most basic species should be able to grasp the parameters." Quinn stood at parade rest, face carefully blank despite the not-so-subtle jab. The simulation was designed for failure. Everyone knew it. The Krivlax were notorious for their unpredictable attack patterns, and defending civilians required spreading forces thin. The Academy's unspoken rule was that an acceptable casualty rate meant keeping losses under 60%. "Nakamura," Vraxteer's voice cut through the pre-simulation chatter. "Your tactical recommendation, a trap." Quinn knew it immediately. "Answer correctly and be accused of insubordination. Answer incorrectly and confirm the General's bias about human incompetence. Standard Confederation protocols suggest a hexagonal defense perimeter, sir," Quinn answered, then added, after a perfectly calculated pause, "though historical data indicates the Krivlax typically exploit geometric predictability." Vraxteer's exoskeleton plates shifted, the Dorsani equivalent of narrowing eyes. "Are you suggesting, Cadet, that Confederation protocols are flawed?" "Not at all, sir. Merely considering the specific adversary." The simulation began with Quinn assigned to the most vulnerable sector, naturally. What wasn't natural was how the Krivlax attackers in his sector seemed to have their difficulty settings cranked well beyond training parameters. "Someone's messing with the sims," hissed Cadet Loxana, a Petrovaran whose crystalline features were fracturing with stress as they ducked behind a holographic barricade. Quinn didn't waste breath responding. 6 civilians were huddled behind them, programmed to exhibit realistic terror. 2 Krivlax warriors had already flanked their position. The tactical display showed the rest of the defensive perimeter holding steady while Quinn's sector was being systematically overwhelmed. "Nakamura," Vraxteer's voice came over the comms, dripping with artificial concern, "perhaps you'd like to implement your alternative to standard protocols? Your sector appears to be struggling." What happened next would become Academy legend, though not for the reasons Vraxteer had intended. Quinn abandoned the defensive position, grabbed a civilian, and raced directly toward the oncoming Krivlax. The holographic insurgents, programmed to take hostages when possible, hesitated just long enough for Quinn to slide beneath them and reconfigure their supposedly secure communications array. When the dust settled, Quinn's sector had not only survived but recorded the lowest civilian casualty rate. The cost: Quinn had technically violated 16 different Confederation combat protocols. The debriefing was volcanic, unacceptable, reckless, completely outside established doctrine. Vrax's exoskeleton had shifted to a furious crimson as he loomed over Quinn. "You endangered civilians with your primitive improvisation." "The civilians survived, sir," Quinn responded, eyes forward, voice steady. "Because you got lucky, human. Luck isn't strategy." The tension in the debriefing room was thick enough to cut with a phase blade. The non-human cadets watched with a mixture of shock and secret admiration. No one challenged General Vraxteer. It simply wasn't done. The following days saw Quinn assigned to increasingly impossible tasks: recalibrating the quantum drives with outdated tools, running physical drills at 1.5 standard gravity, memorizing the entire Dorsani military code, in original Dorsani, a language notorious for its 17 tonal variations. "He's trying to get you to quit," Talax observed as Quinn returned to their quarters, exhausted but unbowed. Quinn just grinned through his fatigue. Then he really doesn't understand humans at all. The breaking point came during the Academy's ceremonial review, with representatives from all 37 species in attendance. Dignitaries, military leaders, and the Academy's senior staff filled the grand observation deck, as cadets demonstrated precision drills that had been perfected over millennia of Confederation history. No one missed how Vraxteer had positioned Quinn at a critical juncture in the formation, where any mistake would be immediately obvious to all observers. What they didn't know was that Quinn had been given the wrong coordinates during the briefing. The ceremonial review unfolded with the precision of a quantum clock. Until it didn't. Quinn stepped forward exactly when and where his instructions indicated, finding himself suddenly 5 meters out of position from the rest of the formation. The perfect formation shattered like cheap glass. Other cadets forced to compensate for his error. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Even those unfamiliar with military precision could recognize the glaring disruption in the otherwise flawless pattern. General Vraxteer seized his moment, striding onto the parade ground with the theatrical timing of someone who'd been waiting for precisely this opportunity. "Cadet Nakamura," he announced, his voice amplified for the benefit of the distinguished visitors. "Perhaps you'd care to explain why you've chosen to disgrace the Academy today?" Quinn stood at attention, eyes forward. "Sir, I followed the coordinates provided in my briefing, sir." "Are you suggesting," Vraxteer's voice dropped to a dangerous purr, "that someone gave you incorrect information? That the fault lies not with your human inadequacy but with my staff?" The trap was sprung. Deny it and admit incompetence. Affirm it and accuse a superior officer. "I am merely stating facts as I understand them, sir," Quinn replied, walking the razor's edge. The general's exoskeleton flushed a deep crimson. "Facts? Let me acquaint you with facts, human." He circled Quinn like a predator. "Fact: your species has contributed nothing of value to the Confederation. Fact: your presence at this academy is a political courtesy, nothing more. Fact: you lack the genetic refinement, the historical pedigree, and the basic capacity to function at our level." The assembled cadets and dignitaries watched in uncomfortable silence. This had moved beyond discipline into something uglier. "Your continued presence here insults the 12,000 years of tradition upon which this institution stands," Vraxteer continued, now inches from Quinn's face. "Have you nothing to say?" Quinn remained at attention, eyes forward, face impassive. "No excuse, sir." Something in Quinn's composure, the refusal to be broken, pushed Vraxteer over the edge. His right upper appendage shot out faster than most eyes could follow. The slap cracked across Quinn's face with enough force to snap his head sideways. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent chamber. For one frozen moment, no one moved. Physical discipline was against Academy regulations, but no one had ever seen a 16-medal general challenged for anything. Quinn slowly turned his face forward again. A thin line of red appeared where one of Vraxteer's exoskeletal ridges had cut his cheek. That's when everyone noticed it. The strange thing happening to General Vraxteer's hand. The appendage that had delivered the slap was trembling, then spasming. His exoskeleton, moments ago flushed crimson with rage, began rapidly shifting through colors. Blue, green, purple, in patternless sequence. "What?" The general's voice faltered, his compound eyes widening as he stared at his own quivering limb. "What is happening?" Time seemed to slow as the Confederation's leading xenobiologists would later reconstruct what happened in those crucial 3 seconds after skin-to-exoskeleton contact. Second 1. Approximately 10,000 sweat glands in Quinn's cheek activated in response to the slap. This would have been unremarkable except for one detail that had somehow been overlooked in 2 decades of human-alien interaction studies. Human perspiration contained trace amounts of sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, elements that, when combined and introduced to the microscopic pores of Dorsani exoskeleton, triggered a cascade of neurochemical reactions. "My hand!" Vraxteer gasped, staring at his appendage as it contorted into increasingly unnatural angles. The shaking had intensified, spreading up his arm toward his thorax. His exoskeleton continued its chaotic color shifts, now adding patterns that no Dorsani had ever naturally displayed. Zigzags, spirals, and what looked suspiciously like polka dots. Second. The complex proteins in human skin cells, evolving over millions of years to fight Earth's unique pathogens, were now busily attaching themselves to Dorsani nerve receptors. These proteins, completely harmless to humans and most other species, happen to fit perfectly into Dorsani neural pathways, like keys into very specific locks. "What have you done to me?" The general's voice had risen several octaves, an undignified squeak emerging from his usually commanding vocal apparatus. His other limbs began to twitch sympathetically as the neural disruption spread through his system. A Petrovarian's medical officer in the audience activated her scanner, her crystalline features refracting light in patterns indicating extreme confusion. "Impossible," she muttered. "His neural system is experiencing a cascade of pleasure." Second. 3. The final piece of this biological perfect storm, the unique cocktail of stress hormones present in Quinn's tissue at the moment of impact. Adrenaline, cortisol, and endorphins, the human body's natural response to threat, had seeped through microabrasions in Vraxteer's exoskeleton, triggering what xenobiologists would later term hyper-euphoric neural disruption syndrome. By now, General Vraxteer of the Dorsani Imperium, 16-medal combat veteran, terror of cadets throughout the known galaxy, had collapsed to his knees. His compound eyes had dilated to their maximum, giving him the appearance of a startled insectoid housecat. All 6 of his limbs were now moving independently of each other, some waving frantically, others appearing to attempt complicated dance maneuvers. "Make it stop," he whispered, then shouted, then giggled, his emotional control completely shattered. "Please, make it stop." The distinguished audience watched in stunned silence as the mighty general writhed on the ground before the impassive human cadet. Quinn hadn't moved a muscle, still standing at attention, though a small, almost imperceptible smile might have tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I believe," Quinn finally said, voice carrying in the shocked silence, "that the general is experiencing an allergic reaction to human biochemistry. Perhaps something in our primitive genetic makeup." The Myconid Academy physician rushed forward, scanner whirring. "Unprecedented. His pleasure centers are firing at 300% normal capacity. It's as if he's experiencing every positive sensation possible simultaneously." "Too much, too good, can't think," Vraxteer babbled, drool escaping his mandibles. His exoskeleton had settled into a pulsating pattern of pink hearts against a lime-green background, a combination no self-respecting Dorsani would ever willingly display. "Please," he begged, looking up at Quinn with what could only be described as desperate adoration. "Don't touch me again." "I'll do anything." The Academy Commandant, a stately Vargosian whose tentacles were currently twisted into the species expression for extreme diplomatic discomfort, cleared her throat. "Cadet Nakamura, are you doing this deliberately?" Quinn blinked innocently. "Sir, no sir, I'm simply standing here, as ordered." The tables had turned so dramatically that several physics students in the audience began checking their quantum uncertainty calculators to see if reality itself had somehow inverted. "Please, human Nakamura, Cadet, Quinn, whatever you wish to be called." General Vraxteer's voice had completely abandoned the commanding baritone that had terrorized generations of cadets. Instead, he produced a high-pitched keening that the Academy's translation software struggled to interpret. "I'll promote you, give you a ship, name a space station after your family." The once dignified Dorsani was now sprawled on the parade ground, all military bearing obliterated. His limbs continued their uncoordinated dance as his exoskeleton cycled through increasingly embarrassing color patterns, currently settling on a neon yellow with purple stripes that pulsed in time with the Academy's background music. "Make the feelings stop," he whimpered, compound eyes spinning independently of each other. "Too much. Can't process. Everything is so beautiful, yet terrible." The gathered dignitaries and cadets remained frozen in collective shock. The Petrovorian's ambassador's crystalline form had actually cracked slightly from the stress of witnessing such an unprecedented diplomatic incident. A group of Myconid observers had turned bright orange, their biological response to extreme confusion. "Look at his neural readings," the Academy physician muttered to her assistants. "I've never seen pleasure centers overloaded to this degree without permanent damage. It's as if every positive experience in his lifetime is happening simultaneously." Quinn maintained his perfect parade rest stance, the only calm figure in a sea of chaos. The thin line of blood on his cheek had already begun to clot, human healing processes working exactly as they should. "Mercy," Vraxteer continued, attempting to prostrate himself despite his uncontrollable limbs. I beg the human species for forgiveness. I recognize your superiority, your biological brilliance, your evolutionary magnificence. Should we do something? Whispered a Vargosian cadet to his squad leader. Like what? Came the hissed response. Touch the human and end up like that? He gestured at the general, who was now attempting to hug Quinn's boot while simultaneously trying to crawl away from it. Commandant Zulara finally recovered enough composure to approach, carefully maintaining a 2-meter distance from Quinn. Cadet Nakamura, can you explain what is happening to General Vraxtir? Quinn's voice remained level, almost conversational. I believe, Commandant, that the general is experiencing an unexpected reaction to human biochemistry. Perhaps the Confederation's xenobiology database requires updating. I'll update everything, Vraxtir interjected, mandibles quivering. Rewrite the entire database, commission new studies, fund research centers. Just make it stop. Is this affecting all Dorsani or just the general? The commandant pressed, her tentacles twitching with anxiety. Unknown, sir, Quinn replied with perfect military precision. This is the first time I've been struck by a Dorsani officer. The emphasis on the word struck rippled through the audience. Physical discipline was explicitly forbidden by Confederation regulations, a fact everyone present suddenly remembered. I struck him. I admit it. Court-martial me, exile me, anything. Vraxtir's confession echoed across the parade ground. Just don't let him touch me again. The academy physician cautiously approached with a neural stabilizer. May I attempt treatment, Cadet Nakamura? Quinn nodded once. Of course, Doctor. I have no wish for the general's suffering to continue. The physician administered the stabilizer with trembling appendages, careful not to make contact with Quinn's skin. The effect was immediate but limited. Vraxtir's most extreme symptom subsided, though his exoskeleton continued its embarrassing color display. The neural disruption appears to be temporary, the physician announced, scanner whirring, though the psychological impact... She trailed off, watching as the once-feared general attempted to hide behind her medical kit. Commandant Jalara's tentacles knotted themselves into the Vargosian equivalent of a bureaucratic headache. This incident requires immediate discussion by the Academy Board. Cadet Nakamura, you are dismissed from today's review. Report to medical for... documentation. Yes, sir. Quinn saluted perfectly, turned with textbook precision, and began walking away. Wait! Vraxtir called after him, voice still unnaturally high. Are there more like you? Do all humans do this? Quinn paused, turning just enough to make eye contact with the general. Sir, human biochemistry varies significantly between individuals. Some reactions might be stronger, some might be weaker. A small, professional smile. Some might be much, much worse. The assembled aliens watched Quinn's departure in stunned silence, many quietly updating their personal threat assessments of humanity. The species they had dismissed as primitive suddenly seemed far more dangerous than anyone had realized. I've made a terrible mistake, Vraxtir whispered, exoskeleton now a pale, frightened blue. We all have. News travels faster than light in any military organization, and by the following morning there wasn't a being on Proxima Station who hadn't heard about the incident. Officially classified, but mysteriously accessible on every cadet's personal device, had been viewed more times than the Confederation's most popular entertainment broadcasts. General Vraxtir had been quietly transported to the Dorsani homeworld for extended medical leave, though rumors suggested he flinched violently whenever humans were mentioned, and had developed an interesting habit of hiding under furniture when shown images of Earth. Quinn found himself in the awkward position of being simultaneously a disciplinary problem and a valuable research subject. The Academy's xenobiology department had politely requested tissue samples, which Quinn provided with the amused cooperation of someone who knew his bargaining position had dramatically improved. Fascinating, the chief xenobiologist murmured, examining Quinn's cells. The biochemical interaction appears completely accidental, an evolutionary quirk from Earth's high-sodium oceans, creating compounds that interact with Dorsani neural pathways. So we're accidentally toxic? Quinn asked. Not toxic, the scientist corrected. More like pharmacologically overwhelming. The effect is non-damaging but intensely disruptive. The disciplinary hearing was a masterclass in bureaucratic contortion. The panel of senior officers faced an impossible task. acknowledging that Vraxtir had violated regulations by striking a cadet while avoiding any suggestion that the mighty Dorsani Imperium had been embarrassed by a species that had barely figured out interstellar travel. Cadet Nakamura, the hearing officer began uncomfortably, while General Vraxtir's actions were regrettable. Your biochemical response was equally concerning. Sir, Quinn responded with perfect innocence, I wasn't aware I had a biochemical response. I was simply standing at attention as required by Academy regulations. The panel exchanged glances. Technically, he was right. Nevertheless, the officer continued, new protocols must be established. All human cadets will now be required to wear these. He gestured to a set of thin gloves and a small skin patch. The gloves prevent direct contact, and the patch dampens the specific compounds in your perspiration. Quinn accepted the items with a solemn nod, carefully not mentioning that the compounds would still be present in human blood, saliva, and tears. Some information was better left for the Confederation to discover through its own research. Throughout the Academy, the atmosphere had shifted. The Vargosians, once quick to demonstrate their physical superiority, now gave humans a wide berth in the corridors. The Myconids, always sensitive to chemo signals, treated human cadets with new deference. Even the Petravirians made efforts to include humans in engineering discussions, suddenly interested in their unique perspectives. They're afraid of us, Tupac observed as he and Quinn sat in the now spacious human section of the dining hall. Not just of you, of all humans, Quinn shrugged. Fear isn't what we want. Respect would be better. I believe, Tupac's spores shifted to a thoughtful blue, they are learning that the two are not mutually exclusive. The Academy curriculum was hastily updated to include new sections on interspecies biochemical safety and non-traditional defense mechanisms. The combat simulations now featured scenarios where direct physical contact was to be avoided, a development that human cadets found endlessly amusing. As for Quinn, his personnel file received a special classification marking and a note from the Commandant herself. Cadet demonstrates exceptional resilience and unexpected tactical advantages. Recommend accelerated command track with focus on diplomatic assignments, preferably where his unique human qualities might prove persuasive. 6 months after the incident, the Galactic Confederation Council formally adopted Resolution 42, Protocols for Safe Interaction with Terran Biochemistry. The document, running to an impressive 347 pages, outlined elaborate precautions for everything from diplomatic handshakes to emergency medical treatment. Humans found it hilarious that the appendix included a special warning about human tears being potentially mood-altering to certain species. Quinn received his officer's commission 2 years ahead of schedule. His graduation ceremony featured the amusing spectacle of Commandant Zalara carefully pinning Lieutenant Bars to his uniform while wearing what appeared to be hazmat gloves. "Lieutenant Nakamura," she said afterward, tentacles arranged in formal congratulation, "your unique contributions to interspecies understanding have been noteworthy." "Thank you, Commandant," Quinn replied. "I look forward to further cultural exchange." Several nearby officers flinched. As humanity's diplomatic position strengthened, so did its strategic one. Confederation battleships suddenly found room for human tactical advisors. Trade negotiations mysteriously concluded in Earth's favor when human delegates attended in person. The Dorsani Imperium announced an unprecedented friendship initiative with Earth, while quietly doubling the required distance their diplomats must maintain from humans. Quinn stood at the viewport of his new assignment, the Confederation flagship Indomitable, watching the stars streak by. His former roommate Talpax, now the ship's communications officer, joined him. "The Vargosian ambassador has requested that human security personnel be present at the upcoming peace talks with the Krivlax," Tilpak reported, spores tinted with amusement. "Apparently our ability to cause neurological distress through casual contact might prove persuasive." Quinn smiled. "Funny how quickly we went from barely evolved primates to essential diplomatic assets. The universe often teaches its lessons in unexpected ways," Telepax observed philosophically. "Indeed it does." Quinn's gaze returned to the stars. "Though I wonder what other evolutionary quirks we humans might surprise the galaxy with next." Across the vastness of Confederation space, new human cadets arrived at the Academy each year. They were no longer assigned to clean quantum torpedo tubes with toothbrushes or expected to know their place. Instead, they were studied carefully, respectfully, and from a safe distance, just in case slapping wasn't the only thing that might make an alien general beg for mercy. After all, humanity had only been at the grown-ups' table for 28 years. They were just getting started.